So take a look at this. This is an interesting piece that was written by Ryan Tyre. And he asked the question, if you're wondering why citizens are being turned away that are coming in to help North Carolina and Tennessee, you'll want to hear my experience as someone who was doing this as a private citizen for almost a decade. And after we just saw footage of the helicopter pilots that was denied to help these people, and if he goes off to save his co-pilot, he was potentially arrested for. So he goes on to say, I was able to get in and out of Asheville. We brought food, water, fuel, and other supplies, as well as help people affected by the floods. But there are reasons why they're not allowing outside help. I cannot confirm the reasons why in NC, but I can tell you the reasons in other storms I have worked, and I'll explain below. Let me share with you the first disaster area that I finally realized that it was all about money. In the Florida Keys, when Hurricane Irma, just after Texas got hit with Harvey, we finished our efforts in Texas. We were the first citizen team to make it to Key Largo. The federal agencies had US 1 shut down just south of Key Largo and wouldn't let anyone in or out, even though the roads were okay to pass. We explained to them that we had boats, jet skis, food, water, chainsaws, and fuel to help bring to these people. They didn't care and wouldn't let us in. It was night by that point, and you rarely saw the lights of the vehicles in distance of the individual keys, meaning the emergency response teams from FEMA weren't even working. It was all quiet. We decided that we would go in anyways. We filled up the boats and jet skis with all that we could reasonably carry and went by water around their BS blockades and around their law enforcement presence on the water. It was 87 miles by water to get into our first stop, Cujo Key and Sugarloaf Key. When we arrived there, we were greeted by the homeowner, for privacy I won't mention the name, who was elated to see us, and all the supplies we brought. His house was in shambles. We started offloading supplies on the shoreline and helping to get them into what was left of his house. During the process, he explained to us that FEMA had set up a command center at a local high school on the island, but they weren't doing anything to help the residences, not even bringing them water. Instead, he explained that they were diving around using a loudspeaker, telling people to stay in their homes. They weren't even helping the homeowners with supplies. I was skeptical at first while he was telling me all this, but then he said something that broke my heart. He told us that the people of the Keys were all in despair because they'd just seen weeks before the overwhelming support for Texas with Hurricane Harvey by the citizens of this country. He and his neighbors are all in the Keys, felt like Americans had forgotten about them completely because at that point, 5 days after landfall, all they have seen was FEMA, and they were told and they were of no help. The residents were cut off from the outside world, no cellular, internet, no way to contact anyone or hear of any efforts to try to help them. The only communication they had was from a local radio station on Sugarloaf Key that was broadcasting on AM to the surrounding keys. The man, after hearing that were citizens trying to bring him help, but being refused entry by federal law enforcement, was visibly upset. He and his neighbors really thought the country had abandoned him. He insisted that we go into the water lodge truck and that we would take us to the radio station so that we can go live on air to tell the citizens trapped in the Keys that we, the American people, were here to help, that the government was trying to stop our efforts. And that is exactly what we did. After that, we determined to help as many people as we could, but we were met by red tape throughout the whole process and the time we were in the Keys. We finally were able to talk to some authorities to let us into the Faro Blanco Resort in Marathon towards the end of the Boot Key. This was the same hotel where the state and local authorities were staging their personnel and were happy to see us. I was able to coordinate several trucks full of supplies to be brought down to the EOC in Marathon. I was privy to the EOC meeting, but was informed in the meeting that all the semi-trucks full of food, water, and hygiene supplies were to be turned around and not allowed to be offloaded for distribution by the EOC. The reason they gave us was that these donations were not from companies on their preferred vendors list, and that they would not accept them or give them to the residents of keys impacted by the storm. It was at this point that I realized it was all about the money. These preferred vendors are getting part of the money being released by state and federal government for each disaster. It turned out some of the vendors make it on the list because a friend gets them on that list, and in return gets ridiculously outlandish amounts of compensation for the services they render. They give kickbacks. So accepting outside donations, even though they are on location and can help people now, they would rather let people suffer so that they can get their kickbacks. This meeting solidified my resolve to help these people regardless of what the greedy officials wanted. We were going to feed the lower keys that were being neglected. I delivered all semi-trucks to the Faro Blanco Resort in Marathon and filled the entire first floor with pallets upon pallets of food, water, and essential supplies, and create a food pantry for residents to come and get anything and however much they needed. From local state troopers to the homeless, all were given wheelbarrows and free reign to get anything they wanted. We also delivered supplies down to Big Pine Key. We helped establish the tent city on Big Pine Key. Big companies like Tostitos Vodka and Wheelin' just kept bringing trucks full of everything that was needed, while FEMA finally started handing out boxes of canned goods. We were filling cars full of food and supplies for people and pets. There was so much more to the story in the Keys, and further from there, in other storms we worked at. The common theme, though, is that the federal government always tries to keep citizens from helping, and the local authorities, the ones that live and work in the area, are always happy to have outside help. I called out to Elon Musk and anyone else who could monetarily help people like myself and those that work with me who have the knowledge and the will to help those devastated by these disasters. Help us sidestep the red tape and get the people the relief they need. They are willing, there are many, and we are ready. So, there you go. Just as I thought, it's all about money, folks. It's all about money. There's so much corruption out there that you cannot even handle. And even with responding to a natural disaster, all this red tape, all this bureaucracy, all the reason for this is because business interests get a kickback off of their support, but not people supporting each other. They rather have community members starve and be torn and be completely ignored and abandoned at a time of need, just so that these large corporations can get kickbacks for the efforts that they are potentially trying to give to people. And even more so, it's not even enough. It's not even enough. And we just showed earlier in another clip that FEMA ran out of money. FEMA just announced they ran out of money. They don't have enough to support the victims. They don't have enough money to support upcoming hurricanes. And now you know why there's a horrific turn away from people that should be responding accordingly to this hurricane and to other natural disasters is absolutely devastating. It's horrific. It's malice. And they do this intentionally for the money. For the money. And that's why people still are in shambles to this day. Still dealing with shambles of neglect after these disasters have devastated everything. Everything. And there is no help in sight from the governments, from companies, from insurance agencies. The only people that are trying to help them are the people that are getting ousted for it. Community activists, neighbors, friends, family. Even Elon Musk is giving a hand. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are raising money right now. They're doing a GoFundMe. Elon Musk is putting Starlink into those affected communities so that they can communicate with the outside world. They're at least attempting to do something. Kamala Harris is off doing a podcast. Kamala Harris was raising funds during the hurricane, raising funds on the West Coast. And you got people like her and Joe Biden telling these people to go pound sand. Go pound sand. Oh, I guess you got to start GoFundMe then. You got to start GoFundMe. Get outsiders to invest into your devastation. Because we got to go and spend that money in Ukraine and Israel to turn those spots into craters. It's amazing how much money they will spend to go after and go against humanity than they do to actually invest into it. It's amazing how much money they have spent in slaughtering and manufacturing these wars and sowing division all across the world. But this is the most wholesome sign of humanity when a natural disaster hits and devastates an entire community. And lots of communities affected by this. This happened across 6 states. The people that are willing to help are being denied. The people that are willing to get out there and help those in need are getting completely dropped by federal law enforcement that rather sees this community die off and perish because they won't get their business kickbacks. Utterly, utterly horrific.